everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. You may notice that I'm wearing a hat for my beloved Colorado Rockies, but you'll notice that that hat is featuring the blackout colors because I am in mourning for the fact that they released Elias Diaz, all-star Elias Diaz, our catcher, my favorite player on the Rockies. Why did you let him go? You got another good player. Don't let those ones go. Now, the kid they brought up from AAA, he may be wonderful. He may be good, and I wish him well. But Elias, he was so cool. He is so cool, and I'll continue to follow him wherever. He's going to get snapped up within 48 hours, I guarantee it. But, yeah, so a bit sad over that, but I continue my steadfast support of my Colorado Rockies. But that's neither here nor there. We're not here for baseball. We're here for records, of course. And today is a really cool one. And today is a video that you may want to sort of snuggle down, get cozy, get your favorite non-alcoholic beverage, and just enjoy this video because we're going to deep dive on advertising on records. And there's some surprises along the way. You're not going to want to miss this. Advertising and records. The two go hand in hand and always have. So, if you have a record, there is likely some form of advertising on there. Welcome in today, guys. We are taking a look at, you guessed it, advertising and records. We're going to start pretty much at the beginning and look at various forms of advertising on records and give them a listen. And for your listening pleasure today, we'll be using the beautiful Crosley Beatles Let It Be record player. I love this thing. I'm trying to remember, I forget what model this is, but it has the magnetic cartridge. It's just a beautiful, good sounding, quality portable. So it'll play all three speeds, which we will need today because we'll be listening to 3 speeds of records today. So let's start at the beginning. I just have to show the top of this again. I know I've done a review of the whole record player before, but when I get this thing out, it just makes me smile. That's right. The concept of advertising and records goes back to the beginning pretty much. We see Dr. Groot, the popular violinist who recorded exclusively for HMV. And basically this is an advertising piece for a different record. So once you have the record in hand, they've made that sale. So they're already on to what would you possibly like next? And not only artists, but even equipment. Here's a portable model C101. This instrument is a marvel of compactness combined with quality. So they're trying to sell you on another record player as well. You can hear how well your records sound on an HMV gramophone. And this is really, really interesting. It's a time machine. You go back and you're able to see some of this advertising and what they were promoting. I think it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. But they realized that they've got you as a captive audience because advertising has always been about impressions. You see something enough times and it becomes imprinted in your mind, in your consciousness. Then the next time you're looking for something, you might think about that impression. So when you're looking for a record player, maybe like, hey, yeah, I saw that model C101. I think that's pretty good. We should give that a shot. For a cartridge today, we're going to be using this Crosley moving magnetic cartridge. It's not an Audio-Technica 3600. A lot of these portables, sort of next level portables, have the 3600, but for a while they weren't speccing them out, and this is one of those. So it is a moving magnet cartridge. It does have a replaceable stylus. This one's in perfectly brand new condition, but I wanted to point that out. I will say this as well. We're going to be listening to some 78 RPM records that would be best served with a wide 3mm stylus. I don't have that outfitted on this particular unit right now. So we'll be listening with a micro groove stylus, which for demonstration purposes will be fine, but it won't get the best sound quality that you could get out of the record. But for today's purposes, it'll be just fine. One of the more famous advertising records was the 1932 Chevrolet record that I'm showing you right now. And basically, this was a short commercial on a record. And it's unique because of its size, its form factor. Somehow, even though Durium records, like I said, a paper base, they have a tendency to curl. They're not really known for their longevity in terms of, lasting quality. Somehow Many examples have existed to this day, and this particular record seems to pop up now and then. This is a pretty good example. It is curled, but it should sound plenty good to listen to. We're going to listen to it here in a second, but check out on the back there, the Chevrolet 1932 Chevrolet. Be sure to play this record today. Now this you can see a remnant of a label and sort of an outline of where it was. This would have been mailed to an individual, and they would have received this record in the mail. Advance information. Play it right away, because there's something, it's almost like hinting there's a secret here. We're going to tell you first before we tell everybody else. The great American value for 1932. So let's go ahead and play it. It's got some serious warpage there, but that's okay.
In a few days, the Chevrolet Motor Company will announce a great new car. We believe it is unquestionably the finest motor car this company has ever designed or built. Chevrolet's success has been due largely to the loyalty of its owners. Therefore, we are giving you this advance information so that you can arrange to be one of the first to experience the thrills of driving this new car. And when we say thrills, we mean just that. You will get the thrill of a smooth 60-horsepower six-cylinder engine with a speed of 65 to 70 miles per hour. The thrill of driving the first and only low-priced car with both simplified freewheeling and the silent shift Synchromax transmission. You will get the thrill of ultra-modern styling in smart new bodies by Fisher. And finally, the thrill of Chevrolet's greater comfort, durability, and economy at prices among the lowest at which motor cars are sold. So take advantage of this advanced information to Chevrolet owners. And whether or not you intend to buy, arrange to drive this new car yourself and learn firsthand why Chevrolet is truly the great American value for 1932.
And there it is. That's a true time machine. I love it. I think that is so incredibly cool. You'll notice that he said body by Fisher. I seem to remember that my mother's Oldsmobile had a logo saying body by Fisher. If I remember right. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's a time machine. That is a portal back into 1932. And that's another form of advertising. So far we've looked at indirect advertising on the label of a record. And now we've looked at direct marketing, something that's mailed directly to the consumer. Let's see what other forms of advertising show up in the world of records. Okay, now I'm not exactly sure of the circumstances surrounding this one. I've been excited to put this on the channel as well. I've had this for a couple of years now. Peter Pan Peanut Butter brings you your Davy Crockett record. I'm thinking that this was a record that was advertised on the jar of peanut butter, and either you had to have so many proofs of purchase and mail away for the record, or some sort of, maybe just advertise, mail away with $3 for your very own Peter Pan record. Now, what's on the record? It is Green Grow the Lilacs from Walt Disney's I'm Lonely, My Darling. Or, on the other side, we've got, and this is probably the money shot, The Ballad of Davy Crockett, featuring the Sandpipers and, wait for it, Mitch Miller? Does that ring a bell? Is that Mitch Miller of the famous sing-along records of the 60s? Yeah, he was sort of inexplicably linked to children's records of the 50s before he became the A&R man for Columbia Records. Just a coincidence it's in a Columbia sleeve here. So let's give this a listen. This is a 6-inch styrene record, 78 RPM, just like the last one. Let's go ahead and spin her up.
Davy Crockett.
And unfortunately, I can't play all of some of these songs because they will still trigger a copyright, if you can believe it. Ballad of Davy Crockett is still a pretty hot commodity. Let's try this one. The Green Grow the Lilacs. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
I used to have a sweetheart, but now I've got none. Since pardon, my darling, I care not for what. The day that I
I want to point out a simple, inconvenient truth at this point. You will notice that we have played a couple of 78 RPM records, and as I said, this is a microgroove stylus, which is the smaller type, designed to play modern records. But I'm using it to play a wide groove records, and some people absolutely flip their lid at the notion of playing a wide groove record, a 78 with a micro groove. And as you can tell, it didn't sound terrible. It would sound a bit fuller if I used the proper stylus, but it wasn't like, this terrible sound, and I wasn't damaging the needle, and I wasn't damaging the record. So there you go. All right, sort of in a similar vein to the last one, this is I don't know if you call this a product premium, but basically this is something you would have mailed away for. This is one of my favorite examples of this type of advertising. So this is very 1950s, and again, Walt Disney here. So we'll look at the record in a minute. But first, so this is the package that was actually mailed back, and you can see it went to Miss Delia DeMars of Purgatory Road in Sutton, Massachusetts, from General Mills. Look at this. Isn't this the coolest thing? And you may be saying, well, why is there an order form on there? Well, once you got this, we're going to advertise something else, because once you get one of the Mouseketeer records, you will probably want all four. And it looks like that was the intention, but apparently never mailed in. Not 100% sure, but maybe looks like the kid filled this in. Cindy, does it say Cindy Kong? Wrong? Something like that. Filled it out and said, look, Mom, let's mail this in. And she said, no, you have one's enough. But yeah, this is super, super cool. We got sort of this a three-tone printing on the back. And one of the four records is in our hands. Now, as was very popular of the day, this record, which I think is a 7-inch record as well. This will be this is not vinyl. This will probably be like a vinyl. That's more of a styrene. It feels like a styrene to me. Is red, and the color coding for kids records was usually either red or yellow. And there's a whole story as to why that is. That's a show for a different day, something we've covered in the past. But this record, you'll notice on the last one, by the way, it was just 2 songs. They weren't specific to that advertising campaign. They were just picked for that record. And such is the case with this. This isn't going to be like a commercial. This isn't going to be some recording that was specially designed for this record. This is simply going to be some songs put on a record for the purposes of this promotion. So 78 RPM, Walt Disney, Mouseketeers, copyright Walt Disney Productions, Donald Duck singing The Mockingbird, Goofy singing Firefighting Fellow. And on the flip side, we have Donald Duck singing The Mockingbird and Goofy singing The Firefighting Fellow. Now, why on earth is it repeated? Because this is the B-side, GM 101B, GM 101B. So it looks like this is either mislabeled or it truly is a repeat on each side. I'm guessing this is probably mislabeled, and one of them has 2 different songs. Although if you look at the modulation is the same. So a bit of a mystery there. And it does say Wheaties. So I guess that's the cereal in question there. So let's go ahead and drop our needle a couple of times and see what we get. Now see how frosty looking the grooves look right there? That is the indication of a pretty well-loved record. It's pretty well worn out. When styrene wears out, it gets frosty looking like that. So it's pretty rough sounding.
Yep, yep, yep. Everybody try to sleep, except the busy mockingbird who likes to sing and sing.
It's kind of hard to hear. So.
Yes, you really see those super whiny about a fellow.
But I recognize Goofy. I recognize his voice. Let's go ahead and flip it over just for grins and see what's on the flip side here.
But even Riley filled the land with a soda water fountain.
Yeah, it's the same material on both sides. fascinating. It's still a time machine. Still, I bet you this song is not on streaming, or either of these songs is not on streaming. So this is like, when you find something like this in the wild, like it's really a discovery. Not just the physical item, but what's hiding in those grooves. Okay, moving forward now to the 1960s, we're going to look at a pretty familiar type of advertising, and that's the commercial. So radio commercials in this case. I happen to have some discs that are for radio stations to play. These are commercial spots promoting different things. This particular one is promoting Flipper's new adventure, and you'll see that those grooves are pretty well defined because they are locked grooves, meaning that once you play one selection, the needle does not move on to the next. It will stay locked before it will be manually cued into the next song. That is to prevent DJs from unwantingly playing the next track. So these are in pristine condition. They sound fantastic. So excited to share these with you.
Hey, Flipper's back. Did you hear?
Yes, you'll find a whole new world of fun and excitement, laughter and danger in Flipper's New Adventure. Filmed in Metrocolor off the Florida coast and in the beautiful Paradise Islands of the Bahamas. Flipper's New Adventure from Ivan Tors and MGM.
Now watch, it will not advance to the next song. It'll just sit there. And not only will it sit there, it'll sit the beginning of the gap so that if somebody's trying to queue up this particular track, the likelihood is they will queue up the lead in to the next one and not the lead out from the old one. So kind of interesting there. And you can see that the different widths of the modulation indicates the different versions. So it'll be like a 60 second, a 30 second, a 20, et cetera, et cetera. It says on the label exactly what there is. But that was interesting, although I don't know where the Bahamas is. I've never heard of the Bahamas before. Next up, we have MGM presents Joy House. We'll play one of the shorter ones here. This record's not quite as clean and nice as the last one.
What goes on in the Joy House? Joy House, a motion picture drama of shock, starring Jane Fonda, Alain Delon, Lola Orta. They run, they crawl, they shout. Until death do them part. Barbara! Joy House from MGM.
That doesn't sound very joyous, but it's interesting anyway. Something really interesting about these records is they're not all double-sided. In fact, most of these are single-sided. Look at the flip side of this one. Look at the texture on that. Isn't that cool, that pattern? I love that. It's a blank label and then just this really cool, unique pattern. While we're on the subject, here's the last one we played. It's single-sided as well, but it's just smooth. This would be good for setting anti-skate. But yeah, blank label, blank record, single-sided. You don't need two sides. You just need to convey the advertising information to you. And obviously never intended for consumers. This is for professional use only. Just you and me hanging out, sharing some records. This is one of my favorites. So check this out. This is a Julie Andrews commercial, and it's on this beautiful sort of clear purple material. On the back side, we've got James Garner, but I'm going to play the Julie Andrews side. This actually features an interview, not just a commercial.
The bombing of London. You tell a frightening but somewhat amusing story of that experience, I believe.
The whistle story, towards the end of the war, the bombs were coming so fast and furious that no housewife could get any cooking done or washing done. The cooking was always burnt because, of course, the air raid siren would go, and everybody had to rush to the shelters and everything got ruined. So my mother decided that she would send me out into the garden to sit on top of the air raid shelter with a whistle and a pair of opera glasses. They weren't binoculars, they were tiny weeny opera glasses in a little velvet drawstring bag, which did no good at all. But I had to sit out there when the air raid siren went, and when I heard the aeroplanes approaching, and I could tell the German planes from the English one, then I blew my whistle, and my mother came running from the house and down into the shelter, and of course I saved her hours of time. But the only trouble was that all the neighbours got to rely on the whistle too, and inevitably one day I forgot to blow it, and after the bomb had dropped, there was an almighty crash very nearby. I had a lot of irate neighbours at the front door saying, "Why didn't she blow her whistle? We were all caught unawares," this kind of thing. So in any weather, I'm afraid from then on, I was stuck with my whistle and my binoculars outside.
And like most Britishers, you found humor in that terrible and disastrous era. In doing the Americanization of Emily,
She is a legendary Britisher, absolutely. All right, one more of this type is also one-sided. The Julie Andrews James Garner record is the only one of these that I have that's two-sided, but this one isn't like smooth, shiny. It's sort of rough, unpolished. This would not be good to set an anti-skate on, but it's single-sided, paper label, blank paper label. Interesting that they put a blank label. I wonder why not just press it without the label. But anyway, this is MGM presents Zebra in the Kitchen radio spot announcements featuring Andy Devine. So, good old Andy Devine, one of the most recognizable voices on radio, television, and film.
What has four legs, black and white stripes, and stands in the kitchen? Give up? Well, here's Andy Devine to tell you.
Did you ever have a zebra in your kitchen? No, you're not dreaming. It's Ivan Tor's fabulous adventures in a new world of laughter and thrills.
See Jay North, Martin Milner, and Andy Devine in the year's zaniest movie from MGM.
It's Ivan Tor, Zebra in the Kitchen in Metro color.
Metro color. Man, it's been too long since we've had a zany movie hit the theaters, don't you think? Now, look at the run-out groove, how big that is, but you'll never hit it because it's stuck in that locked groove. However, if I put it over here, you'll notice that the arm doesn't even move because these grooves right here aren't concentric. They're just circles. And that's really interesting because this record is not one continuous groove like a typical consumer record. Like I said, this uses individual locked. It's almost like, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 records on one disc instead of 4 tracks on one record. Okay, you may be wondering why I'm pointed at the back of the record player. That's because we're going to look at some albums here. These are 33 RPM 12-inch albums. And you may be looking at this and say to yourself, I don't see any advertising there. The thing with 12-inch albums in the 50s and especially in the 60s, but kind of always, is that you will, I would say 98% of the time, find some form of advertising, whether it's for new records, other records, if you like this, listen to that kind of a thing, or just flat out blatant advertising. So on the front, you get what you paid for. You get Ralph Flanagan and his orchestra dance to the new live sounds of Ralph Flanagan and his orchestra on Coral Records. But if we flip this around, you're going to get the track listing, a blurb about the record. But then down here, look at this. If you like this record, you be sure to check out Les Brown's Jazz Songbook, a tribute to the instruments of Neil Hefti, etc., etc. So these are specifically chosen records that you will probably like if you like this record that you just bought. Also knowing, look at the timing of this too, like the way this is very intentional. They know you're going to put the record on, you're going to sit down on your couch probably, and take this jacket with you back to the couch, sit it, and while you're listening, hold it in your hands. You're going to want to know the track listings, then you're going to be curious about the record, and while you're interested and you're hooked, and by the way, so it's a very intentional, this is designed to be read in the order in which it's presented. So that is probably... when it comes to 12-inch records, advertising on an LP, that's probably one of the most common and subtle ways of doing it. The next thing is the sleeve. The sleeves were very important and integral to advertising because they would often be full color like this one, showing you all of these records. Now, just like when you read the cover of a book, that's, kind of what sells the book in a large way is the art. So the art on a record is equally important to somebody who is considering buying it. So it'll be brand specific to the label that the record is, and it will show you other records. Usually these are a little bit less targeted, so it may not just be jazz. It may have various genres thrown in there. That's an efficient way to do it because that way they can print one sleeve, advertising sleeve, and use it for all genres of records at the same time. And then those were usually changed out, every so often. So if you bought this record in 3 more years, it may have a different sleeve. All right, and taking it a step further, here is another record. This is a Tex Beneke Moonlight Serenade record on RCA Camden, RCA's value label. And on the back, you will notice nothing about the record itself that you're holding in your hands. All you have on the back is advertising for other records. They are not, this is a value record, so you're not getting, you know, on the regular RCA Victor release, you would probably get some copy on the back talking about the record, the artist, the track listing. All that information is included on the front. All the track listing data is on the front, but on the back, they're going to take that advantage to sell you on something else. So this was a value record, meaning that it made less money in a way. And the way that RCA Camden did it is they just paid the artist lower royalties. They were usually older records, titles that have been in the catalog for a period of time. So in order to recoup some of those costs, they were using this as a billboard, a literal billboard in your hands to advertise. Now, if you get a record that's like an as seen on TV record, or you know, some sort of promotional thing, they would always have advertising stuff. It's like, okay, you got this record. We're not going to dwell on that. We're focused on the next record that you're buying. And they absolutely are plastered with advertising on the back. Okay, we're moving into the 1980s this time. We are going to look at a cereal box record. Now, this is kind of sort of a cereal box record. A true cereal box record was cut from the back of the box and would have a jagged edge, etc., because, you know, a kid cut it off the box. It would literally be a paper record, of which this is, but I'll explain what's different in a minute. But it would have been cut directly off the back, and they are known as a cereal box record. Late 70s and 80s, that was a very cool and popular way to advertise. This looks to be a promotional record that's similar. So it's related to cereal because it's Life cereal, but you can tell it wasn't cut from the box, or if it was done very, very well. You'll also notice the familiar curl that we saw with that Durium record, because like it is a clear surface bonded to paper cardstock, and that clear surface has a tendency to constrict over time, curling the paper backing. Again, for this quality of a recording, doesn't matter. By the way, isn't it amazing that this is a recording? That still fascinates me, that this is an actual record, even though it feels just like a piece of paper with plastic on one side. So this is part of the rock music mystery. This is record number 2. Either this would have been in the box of cereal, or perhaps sent in the mail. I'm not 100% sure. Let me know in the comments down below. But it's similar to what a cereal box record would be. So 33 RPM, which is, you know, everything since the radio spots we were listening to has been 33 RPM. Let's give it a listen. This is a game. Oops, and you can see it sliding there. So we're going to need to put something on top of it. I wouldn't put a full-blown record weight.
Welcome to Life Cereal's Rock Music Mystery. Listen to these clues, and then pick the right answer from the side panel of the cereal box, and you could become one of over 75,000 winners. Hard rock singer-guitarist Joe Walsh has more than one claim to musical fame. In the mid-1970s, he joined the Eagles to perform on one of the all-time best-selling albums, Hotel California. He ran for president in 1979, promising free gas for everyone. Years before that, he achieved rock and roll stardom with a big hit single from his second solo album. Can you name it?
I love this stuff. This is, you know, it's interesting. I don't know how many people get into records with the intent on collecting this kind of stuff. Maybe they do, but it's so fun. You know, you think, oh, I'm just going to get into vinyl and collect all of my favorite music. But then when you discover the whole branch of vinyl collecting that is advertising and, you know, sort of novelty pieces, it's even more fun. It's just, I love it. I hope you do too. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you probably like it as well. And if you are watching and haven't got any of these types of records, keep your eyes out. I mean, they'll be at thrift stores, mostly antique stores. You can find them online. They're not expensive because they were produced in mass. And I don't mean Massachusetts. Wow, motorcycle guy again. We had a couple of those zooming down the street lately. Okay, so this is one of my Alf records. This was a Happy Meal toy. So it's the same idea. It's cardboard. And on the back here we say, this is Melmac Rock. You've heard of punk rock, hard rock, soft rock, granite rock. But nice. You've never heard of rock like Melmac Rock. This rock will knock your socks off. To receive your Alf rebate, you must do the following. But yeah, this is Burger King 1980s advertising ephemera, and it's super cool. I've got 2 or 3 of these records, so let's give it a spin. Hopefully this one doesn't need a wait. Yep, see? It just wants to sit there. So I'm going to put another camera battery on here for weight. Hopefully that'll do the trick. Nope. I'm going to put 2 camera batteries on here for weight. Hopefully that'll do the trick. Probably have something better I could use. I do have a record weight, but I don't like using record weights on belt-driven turntables. This ought to do the trick. How about an Olympus micro cassette recorder? It's probably as heavy as a record weight, honestly. There we go. Good old Alf. That one doesn't sound particularly pleasing to the ears, at least not my ears. It's pretty well worn. It's harder to tell on these paper records when they're worn, but if you sort of look at a certain angle, you'll see that frosted look, especially I could see it right there, sort of a frosted look to those grooves. Still fun, still audible. It's fun to put on every once in a while. Okay, so paper records, cereal box records. Now let's move on to a record that you would have mailed away for, similar to that 1950s Mickey Mouse record. You can see now why I picked an interesting record player, because we're looking at it a lot. So hopefully you are enjoying this. So yeah, this is the Snap, Crackle, Pop Kellogg's advertising record. This is a form of advertising where you mail away for the record and they send it to you, and then they proceed to advertise to you further by the content of the record. So not only is the process of knowing about the record and getting the record advertising, but the content itself is advertising as well.
Kellogg's Rice Krispies, yeah, they taste so fine. Now when I want milk, boy, everything has gotta stop. Listen to the snap, crackle, and pop. Listen to the...
And the 3 different tracks on here are basically 3 different commercial songs with different musical types. And one more. Pretty fun, pretty cool. Something fun about hearing a commercial on a record. I don't know, at least for me it is. Okay, getting near the end here. We got a couple more to look at. So actually one more to look at. This is an interesting one. This is a very, very popular recording actually. This record is not to be played on the air, 45 RPM. So I'm unsure if this is going to trigger any sort of copyright claim. I hope not.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love.
On the flip side here, we've got 2 different songs, A Little Bit of Sunshine, 60 Seconds, and It's the Real Thing. So let's go ahead and drop our stylus a couple of places.
May you always have someone to share all your happy moments through. Somebody who will sit and laugh and share some coke with you, 'cause they're the real thing. And I'd like to...
And this one.
That's the way it is, with the bottle of Coke and the way it will stay. Coca-Cola, what the world wants today is the real thing. Coca-Cola is the real thing.
Very cool. That's awesome. I love this stuff. A little bit of distortion on that last record there. It actually sounded better on a ceramic cartridge. I was playing it on the other day. Anyway, that's it for advertising records. If you want an advertising record, you probably already have one. Because like I said, those LPs, especially those vintage ones, famous for advertising. And they still do it to this day. If you want some absolutely designed for advertising records, your best bet is an antique store or eBay. So if you're interested, it's something you can get into. It's not expensive. They're unique historical pieces. They're not particularly valuable. So that means that you can pick these things up for $1 or $2. And I would consider this a part 1 because I'm going to still keep picking these things up. And after I accumulate enough, maybe we'll do a part 2 because this is fascinating to me. These are time capsules. I love the notion of any form of recorded media, whether it's a photograph, an audio recording, a movie, or a sound recording, being a portal, a time traveling device. And it really is to take us back. And one of the funnest ways to do that is through advertising, because once these advertising recordings are pulled from the market, they're never heard again unless you find them on a piece of antique advertising. And I think that that's just fascinating. I hope you did as well. Thumbs up if you like this video. There's various ways you can support the channel if you're interested, including merchandise, custom 45 adapters, etc. But mostly just watching, thumbs upping, commenting down below your thoughts, anything that you have, any pieces from your collection that you would love to tell us about. Would love to hear about it. But that's going to do it for today, my friends. So happy record hunting. We'll see you next time.